Welcome back to HealthFlex Zone, the channel dedicated to bringing you science-backed health, fitness, nutrition, and metabolic strategies that transform your body from the inside out. If you've struggled with stubborn weight, slow metabolism, fatigue, or belly fat that refuses to budge no matter how clean you eat, you're in the right place. Today's video exposes one of the biggest myths in the weight loss world, the idea that you need to starve yourself, skip meals, or fast endlessly to burn fat. In reality, most people are unknowingly sabotaging their metabolism because of one single hormonal issue that has nothing to do with willpower or calories. That hormone is insulin. The truth is, most people walking around today are insulin resistant without even knowing it. They may feel normal, they may look normal, they may even think they are doing everything right. But inside their body, their cells have stopped responding properly to insulin. And when your insulin stays high, your belly fat becomes locked, your cravings become uncontrollable, your energy crashes become predictable, your metabolism becomes sluggish, and you feel like your body is working against you instead of for you. The reason old diet advice doesn't work is because it focuses on restriction instead of chemistry. It forces people to eat less and move more, but it doesn't repair the metabolic malfunction that's happening underneath. When insulin is high, your body cannot burn fat no matter how hard you try. And this isn't your fault. It's how the human metabolism is designed to protect you from starvation. But today, we aren't starving. We are overstimulated. Modern food, modern stress, and modern habits create constant insulin spikes. And these spikes trap your fat, hijack your hunger, slow your thyroid, and eventually make weight loss feel impossible. But the exciting part is this: you can fix insulin resistance without starving yourself. You can reset your metabolism without extreme fasting. And you can melt belly fat by changing how you eat, when you move, and how you combine foods. All backed by cutting-edge metabolic research. In today's video, you're going to learn the 5 science-backed steps that restore insulin sensitivity naturally. These steps are simple, affordable, and work with your biology, not against it. We'll talk about the acid hack, a $2 kitchen ingredient that lowers your blood sugar response instantly. We'll talk about the Kinetic Cure, a 10-minute habit that pulls sugar out of your bloodstream without needing insulin at all. We'll cover the sequencing strategy, a powerful method that gives you medication-level blood sugar controlled just by changing the order of the food on your plate. You'll discover how even one night of poor sleep can make you pre-diabetic the next day, how to fix your circadian rhythm so your metabolism works the way it was designed to. And finally, we'll reveal the metabolic anchor, the step that most people get wrong because they've been misled by diet gurus telling them to skip breakfast. The truth is, eating the right macronutrient within 60 minutes of waking up can transform your hunger, your energy, your cravings, and your fat-burning ability for the rest of the day. Before we dive into step 5, let me give you a real-world example of how powerful this metabolic reset can be. Sarah, a 47-year-old mom of 3, came to one of our programs feeling defeated. She had tried low-calorie diets, juice cleanses, long fasting windows, and even intense workouts. But she kept gaining weight, especially around her midsection. She thought her metabolism was broken. When we looked deeper, her problem wasn't calories, it was insulin resistance. By simply shifting the order of her meals, adding the acid hack before eating, and following the 10-minute post-meal rule, her cravings disappeared within a week. Her energy stabilized, her afternoon crashes vanished, and the belly fat that refused to budge for years finally began to melt, without starving herself or over-exercising. This is the power of working with your biology instead of fighting it. Now let's begin the journey of fixing your metabolism the right way. Time to unlock. Step number 5. Step number 5 is the foundation of repairing insulin resistance. Resetting your metabolic signaling at the beginning of each day. Most people don't realize this, but the morning hours determine how your metabolism behaves for the next 16 hours. And the biggest mistake people make is skipping breakfast, or eating the wrong kind of breakfast. You've probably been told that skipping breakfast helps you burn more fat, or that fasting longer will force your body to dip into its fat stores. But if you are insulin resistant, the opposite happens. When you skip breakfast, your body experiences A cortisol spike, that's your stress hormone, and cortisol directly raises blood sugar. When blood sugar rises, insulin rises. And when insulin rises first thing in the morning, your fat-burning switch stays locked in the off position. For the entire day, instead of burning fat, your body stores it. Instead of feeling energized, you crash by mid-morning. Instead of having stable hunger, you get cravings for sugar, caffeine, bread, or something sweet to get you through the day. To fix this, you need something called a metabolic anchor. A metabolic anchor is a specific macronutrient that stabilizes your glucose, lowers your insulin response, reduces cravings, and sets your metabolism on the right track. And that macronutrient is protein, not just any protein, but a substantial high-quality, fiber-balanced protein meal within 60 minutes of waking up. This doesn't mean you need to eat a huge breakfast. It means your first bite of the day must contain enough protein to tell your metabolism. Energy is available. You're safe. You don't need to store fat. You can burn it. Protein stabilizes insulin more effectively than any other macronutrient, slows digestion, reduces the rise in blood sugar, improves satiety hormones like GLP-1 and peptide Y, and signals to your liver to turn down glucose production. When you pair protein with fiber or healthy fats, the effect is even stronger. A real-world example of this is Michael, a 52-year-old office worker who was stuck in a cycle of skipping breakfast, drinking coffee on an empty stomach, and then crashing by noon. He believed skipping breakfast helped him lose weight, but in reality, it kept his insulin elevated all morning. When he started eating a protein-anchored breakfast, something as simple as eggs with avocado or Greek yogurt with chia seeds, or even a protein shake paired with a handful of nuts, his cravings dropped by 80% within 3 days. He no longer felt the need to snack. His afternoon energy skyrocketed, and the stubborn fat around his waist began to shrink, even though he didn't change anything else about his routine. The reason this works is simple. Protein-anchored breakfast reduces the insulin spike that normally happens mid-morning and prevents the cycle of glucose crashes that drive overeating. The goal is 25 to 30 grams of high-quality protein in your first meal. That might look like 3 eggs plus some vegetables, a cup of Greek yogurt, a protein shake with added fiber, or a tofu scramble if you're plant-based. What you must avoid is starting your day with carbs alone, things like bread, cereal, fruit juice, pastries, or even oatmeal on its own. Carbs by themselves spike insulin immediately, and when you eat them on an empty stomach, that spike is even more dramatic. But when you sequence protein first, the same carbohydrates have a much smaller effect on your blood sugar. This is why people who start their day with protein lose fat more easily, feel more energized, and experience fewer cravings. At this point in the video, around 3 minutes in, you should already be feeling the shift in how you understand metabolism. You're not broken. Your body is not failing you. You simply need to communicate with your biology the right way. And the first communication of the day, your breakfast, determines everything that follows. When you anchor your morning with protein, you stabilize the hormonal environment needed for fat loss, muscle preservation, and metabolic flexibility. This one change can dramatically accelerate your progress before you even get to the other steps in this video. Now that step number 5 has laid the foundation, it's time to continue building your metabolic comeback. Next up is step number 4. Step number 4 is one of the most powerful yet overlooked metabolic tools available to you, and the best part is that it costs almost nothing. This is the acid hack, a simple method proven to lower your insulin response, flatten your glucose curve, and reduce fat storage immediately after a meal. The science behind this step is fascinating because it shows that you don't have to change what you eat to improve your metabolic health. You just need to change the chemical environment inside your stomach before you eat. And this is where the acid hack comes in. Researchers have discovered that adding mild acidity before a meal can slow down the digestion of carbohydrates, reduce the breakdown of starch into glucose, and delay gastric emptying. All of this leads to a much lower spike in blood sugar. When glucose spikes are minimized, insulin stays lower, and when insulin stays lower, your body can finally start tapping into fat stores instead of shoving everything you eat straight into storage. The simplest way to use this hack is with a tablespoon. of apple cider vinegar diluted in a glass of water, taken about 10 to 15 minutes before your meal. But it doesn't have to be apple cider vinegar specifically. Any natural vinegar works. Even lemon juice or diluted lime juice can have similar benefits. The key is the acetic acid. Acetic acid interferes with the enzymes that break down carbohydrates into glucose. This means the sugar from your meal enters your bloodstream more slowly, in a more controlled and manageable way. Instead of your blood sugar shooting up and crashing down, which triggers cravings, hunger, fatigue, and fat storage, you get a steady release of energy. It's like shifting your metabolism from a roller coaster to a calm, stable ride. To understand how dramatic this effect is, imagine two people eating the same plate of pasta. One drinks a glass of water with a tablespoon of vinegar before eating. The other does not. The person using the acid hack will have up to 30% lower blood sugar after the meal, and significantly lower insulin levels for several hours. This means they will feel full longer, avoid cravings later in the day, and store far less fat from the same amount of food. The other person will likely feel tired, hungry again sooner, and experience the insulin surge that locks fat inside. Fat cells. You don't need to starve yourself or cut carbs. You simply need to control how your body responds to them. A real-world example of this comes from a man named Daniel, a 44-year-old accountant who felt like his metabolism was slowing down more every year. He ate what he considered a normal diet, but his energy crashed after lunch. His belly fat increased gradually, and he felt addicted to sugar. When he tried restricting carbs, he felt miserable. But when he tried the acid hack, everything changed. He took 1 tablespoon of vinegar in water before lunch and dinner. Within the first week, he noticed that he wasn't as hungry in the evenings. Within the second week, he stopped having afternoon slumps. By the end of the first month, he lost nearly 7 pounds without changing anything else in his diet. The reason is simple. He lowered the insulin spikes that had been trapping his fat for years. But there's another benefit to the acid that most people don't know about. It increases something called insulin sensitivity, meaning your cells respond better to insulin. When your cells are more sensitive, your body needs to release less insulin to manage the same amount of glucose. Lower insulin means easier fat burning, fewer cravings, and more stable mood and energy. This is exactly why people who use the acid hack consistently notice that they can eat foods that used to trigger weight gain without experiencing the same negative effects. Some people worry about the taste of vinegar. And if that's you, don't stress. You can dilute it more, mix it with sparkling water, or simply use lemon water instead. The goal is not to overwhelm your stomach. The goal is to introduce mild acidity so your meal has a softer metabolic impact. You should avoid drinking it undiluted because that can irritate your throat or stomach. A simple recipe that works is 1 tablespoon of vinegar mixed with 1 large glass of water. If you prefer lemon, squeeze half a lemon into warm water. Drink it 10 to 15 minutes before your meal, and you're done. It's easy, affordable, and extremely effective. Around the 7-minute mark of this video, you should be starting to feel empowered. You're learning how to manipulate your biology with simple strategies that don't involve punishment, deprivation, or extreme discipline. By using the acid hack, you're giving your metabolism a chemical advantage. You're smoothing your glucose curve, protecting your pancreas, calming your insulin response, and setting yourself up for long-term fat loss, all without cutting your favorite foods. It's not magic, it's biochemistry. And once you understand biochemistry, you can finally stop fighting your body and start working with it. Now that you've learned how a simple, acidic drink can transform the way your body handles food, it's time to move into step number 3, the sequencing strategy, which is one of the most powerful insulin control methods ever discovered. Step number 3 is the sequencing strategy, a method so powerful that researchers have compared its effects to prescriptional level blood sugar control. Yet it requires no medication, no supplements, and no restriction. It simply asks you to change the order in which you eat your food. The science behind this is incredibly elegant because it uses your body's natural digestive sequence to your advantage. Most people assume that what they eat is the most important factor. But research now shows that the order in which you eat can have an equally dramatic impact on your blood sugar. When you eat carbs first, things like bread, rice, pasta, potatoes, fruit, desserts, or even juice. They digest quickly and hit your bloodstream like a freight train. Your body responds by releasing a large amount of insulin to manage the sudden surge of glucose. That insulin spike locks your fat storage switch into the on position and keeps it there for hours. But if you simply reverse the order of your meal, your glucose curve can drop by as much as 75%. That means smaller insulin spikes, less fat storage, fewer cravings, and more stable energy. The rule is simple. Fibers first, proteins and fats second, carbohydrates last. When you start your meal with vegetables or a salad, something with fiber, that fiber acts like a protective gel inside your stomach. It slows the absorption of glucose and helps your body digest the rest of the meal in a slower, more balanced way. After your fiber, you move on to proteins and fats, such as chicken, fish, tofu, eggs, beans, nuts, or healthy oils. These proteins and fats further slow digestion and prepare your body to release a more controlled, steady insulin response. Only then do you eat your carbs. By eating your carbs last, you prevent the rapid glucose spike that would have occurred. If you ate them first, the carbs still taste just as good. You still get to enjoy your meal, but your body handles them more gracefully. Imagine this in action. Two people sit down for a dinner that includes grilled chicken, small salad, steamed vegetables, and a side of rice. One person starts with the rice because it's warm and comforting. The other starts with the salad, then the vegetables, then the chicken, and ends with the rice. They ate the same foods, the same calories, the same nutrients, but their metabolic outcomes are completely different. The person who ate the rice first will experience a steep blood sugar rise, followed by an insulin surge, followed by a crash. They will want something sweet later. Their fat burning will be shut down for hours. But the person who used the sequencing strategy will have a smooth glucose curve, a mild insulin rise, and a longer-lasting feeling of fullness. They will not experience a crash, and their fat burning will remain active. A real-world example of the power of sequencing comes from a woman named Linda, a 61-year-old retired teacher who struggled with prediabetes for over a decade. She wasn't a heavy eater. She didn't binge, but she loved carbohydrates, bread, rice, potatoes, and always ate them first because she grew up believing that warm carbs should be eaten before they get cold. When she learned about the sequencing strategy, she decided to test it out without changing anything else about her diet. She still ate bread, she still ate rice, she still enjoyed her favorite meals. The only difference was that she ate her fiber and protein first. After just 1 month, she lost 6 pounds without trying. Her blood sugar stabilized, her cravings disappeared, and her doctor was shocked to see that her A1C, a marker of long-term glucose control, dropped significantly. She didn't starve herself. She didn't cut out carbs. She simply changed the order of the food on her plate. What makes this strategy especially powerful is that it pairs beautifully with the acid hack from step 4. When you use vinegar or lemon water before your meal, and then follow it with fiber, protein, and finally carbs, your glucose response becomes even smoother. This combination creates a metabolic shield that keeps insulin low and stable, allowing your body to access stored fat more easily throughout the day. Another benefit of sequencing is appetite control. When you eat fiber and protein first, your hunger hormones like ghrelin are suppressed naturally. At the same time, satiety hormones such as GLP-1 and PYY increase. This means you feel full sooner, stay full longer, and automatically reduce your calorie intake without trying. This is why so many people report that when they eat in the right order, their desire for dessert dramatically drops. They don't force themselves to avoid sweets, they simply stop craving them. We're now around the 11-minute mark, and by this point you're beginning to understand the theme of this metabolic reset. It's not about deprivation, punishment, or extreme discipline. It's about strategy. It's about using science to turn your meals into metabolic tools. The sequencing strategy is one of the easiest habits to implement because it doesn't ask you to sacrifice anything. It simply asks you to be intentional. The results can be profound. Reduced insulin spikes, better digestion, more energy, fewer cravings, and steady fat loss. Now that you've mastered sequencing, it's time to move into step number 2. The Kinetic Cure, one of the most powerful ways to burn glucose without relying on insulin at all. Asterisk. Step number 2 is what I call the Kinetic Cure, a simple but incredibly powerful movement strategy that allows your muscles to absorb glucose without needing insulin at all. It might surprise you to learn that your muscles are the biggest glucose-consuming organ in your entire body. Not your brain, not your liver, your muscles. They act like massive storage tanks that soak up sugar from your bloodstream. But here's the part most people don't know. Your muscles have a backdoor mechanism for absorbing glucose without any insulin. This mechanism is activated when your muscles contract. That's right. Even the smallest amount of movement can open a back door that pulls glucose out of your bloodstream instantly, reducing your blood sugar and lowering your insulin levels. Naturally, this is why step number 2 is so important. Most people eat a meal and then do the worst thing possible. They sit down, they get comfortable, they scroll on their phone, they watch TV, they return to their desk. And while this might feel relaxing, it creates a metabolic bottleneck. When you sit down right after eating, your muscles become inactive. Active muscles cannot pull glucose out of your bloodstream efficiently, which means your body must rely entirely on insulin to handle the sugar from your meal. This causes a big insulin spike, which leads to fat storage, cravings, and that familiar post-meal crash. The solution is simple. Move for 10 minutes after you eat. It doesn't need to be exercise. You don't need a gym. You don't need equipment. You don't need intensity. You simply need movement. Light, gentle, slow, easy movement. A walk around your house, a stroll down the street, climbing the stairs a couple of times, tidying up the kitchen, folding laundry. Even slow, deliberate leg movements while standing can activate glucose uptake. The goal is not to burn calories. The goal is to activate your muscles' glucose transporters, the tiny, biological tools that suck sugar out of your bloodstream before insulin has to. Research shows that just 10 minutes of light walking can reduce your blood sugar by up to 30%. That's a massive improvement for something so simple. The benefits compound over time. By performing this small ritual after each meal, your insulin levels remain lower, your glucose becomes more stable, your cravings shrink, and your metabolism becomes more flexible. People who adopt this habit often say they feel lighter, calmer, and more energized throughout the day. Let me give you a real-world example. A man named Robert, 59 years old, had been battling fatigue, high blood pressure, and creeping weight gain for years. He thought his metabolism was slowing because of age. He used to eat lunch at work and then immediately sit at his desk, feeling sluggish for the rest of the afternoon. When he learned about the Kinetic Cure, he made one simple change. He started walking for 10 minutes after lunch every day. That's it. He didn't change what he ate. He didn't go to the gym. He didn't start a diet. All he did was walk gently for 10 minutes. Within 2 weeks, he noticed that he no longer felt sleepy in the afternoons. His mental clarity improved. His blood sugar readings dropped. Within 6 weeks, he had lost nearly 5 pounds. Without ever trying to lose weight, the magic wasn't in the walking. The magic was in unlocking his muscles' natural glucose-absorbing abilities. The Kinetic Cure works because it bypasses insulin. For anyone who is insulin resistant, this is game-changing. If your cells don't respond well to insulin, your body has to produce even more of it to keep your blood sugar under control. But when you move after eating, your muscles say, "We've got this," and they take over the job. This reduces the workload on your pancreas and gradually makes your cells more insulin sensitive. Lower insulin levels mean easier fat burning, as your glucose control means fewer cravings. And improved metabolic flexibility means you can handle more foods without gaining weight. Another benefit of the Kinetic Cure is emotional balance. Big insulin spikes and glucose crashes are directly linked to anxiety, irritability, and mood swings. By keeping your glucose steady with a simple 10-minute movement habit, you protect not only your metabolism, but also your mental and emotional well-being. Many people find that this single habit improves their sleep, reduces nighttime hunger, and stabilizes their energy for hours. We are now around the 14-minute mark, and at this point, you can see the pattern. Every step in this metabolic reset is about working with your biology, not against it. You don't need to starve yourself. You don't need extreme diets. You don't need punishing workouts. You just need the right habits, stacked in the right order, aligned with how your body functions at a chemical level. The Kinetic Cure is one of the most forgiving and accessible tools you can use. Yet its effects can be life-changing. Now you're ready for the most misunderstood part of metabolism. Step number 1. The Metabolic Anchor. This final step brings everything together and sets the stage for effortless fat loss by resetting the first hormonal signals of your day. Asterisk. Step number 1 is what I call the Metabolic Anchor, and it might be the most misunderstood principle in modern nutrition. For years, the fitness world has promoted fasting, skipping breakfast, eating less, and pushing your first meal later and later in the day. And while fasting does have benefits for some people, the truth is that for anyone struggling with insulin resistance, chronic fatigue, stubborn belly fat, or frequent cravings, skipping breakfast is one of the worst things you can do. Wake up. Your body is highly sensitive to cortisol, the stress hormone. Cortisol naturally rises in the morning to help you wake up. But if you don't eat, that cortisol stays elevated for too long. High morning cortisol spikes your blood sugar, triggers insulin, and sets off a hormonal chain reaction that makes your metabolism unstable for the rest of the day. This leads to cravings, fatigue, irritability, and overeating later. The Metabolic Anchor fixes this by stabilizing your hormones within the first 60 minutes of waking up. The Metabolic Anchor is simple. You need protein and enough of it, first thing in the morning. Not coffee alone, not a sugary cereal, not toast or fruit or a light breakfast. You need a protein-rich meal that contains at least 25 to 35 grams of high-quality protein. When you start your day with protein, you stabilize your glucose, lower your cortisol, and blunt the insulin spike that usually occurs mid-morning. A single action determines how your body will use energy for the rest of the day. Protein activates satiety hormones, reduces cravings, increases metabolic rate, and provides amino acids necessary for muscle repair and hormone production. When you anchor your metabolism early, every step after that becomes easier. The acid hack works better. The sequencing strategy works better, and the Kinetic Cure becomes more effective. Another reason this step is essential is because protein signals safety to the brain. When you wake up and don't eat protein, your brain interprets that as a stressor, a potential threat. It then increases cortisol even more and slows down certain metabolic processes. But when you give your body a steady dose of protein early, your brain relaxes. It shifts into a stable, predictable metabolic rhythm. You feel calmer, more focused, and more energized. Your blood sugar remains stable, and your insulin stays low. Stable insulin means your body becomes far more capable of burning fat throughout the day. Let's look at a real-world example. A woman named Sarah, 47 years old, had been skipping breakfast for almost a decade because she believed it would help her lose weight. Instead, she was constantly hungry, snacking late at night, struggling with belly fat, and feeling exhausted. When she started the Metabolic Anchor, she didn't change anything else. No new diet, no new workouts, no new routines. She simply added a protein-rich breakfast within 1 hour of waking. Her go-to meal became a protein shake with 30 grams of protein paired with a small portion of healthy fats like nuts or avocado. Within 10 days, she noticed she wasn't craving sugar after lunch anymore. She stopped snacking at night. Her energy was smoother, her mood improved, and she naturally ate less throughout the day. After 1 month, she lost 7 pounds, simply by giving her body the anchor. The morning protein meal also improves your metabolic flexibility. This means your body becomes better at switching between burning carbs and burning fat. Without a protein anchor, most people are stuck in sugar-burning mode. They burn through. Carbs quickly crash, crave more sugar, and repeat the cycle all day. With a protein anchor, your metabolism becomes more balanced. You start burning more fat even while resting. This is one of the biggest reasons why people who adopt this habit often report losing belly fat faster than they expected. Protein also stabilizes appetite hormones, GLP-1 and PYY2 hormones that signal fullness increase dramatically when you eat protein. Ghrelin, the hunger hormone, drops. This means fewer cravings, better portion control, and a natural reduction in daily calorie intake without feeling deprived. People often think they have a willpower problem, but in reality, they have a hormone problem. The Metabolic Anchor corrects that by front-loading your day with nutrient-dense, it's metabolically supportive fuel. Another important point is mental clarity. When your morning starts with protein, instead of sugar or caffeine alone, your brain receives a steady flow of amino acids that support neurotransmitter production. This improves focus, reduces anxiety, and enhances productivity. Many people report that breakfast protein becomes their secret weapon for mental performance. We're now approaching the 20-minute mark of the video, and this is where everything comes together. The Metabolic Anchor sets the tone for the entire day. The Kinetic Cure manages glucose after meals. The sequencing strategy controls how your food enters your bloodstream. The acid hack lowers the insulin response. And your intro sets the stage for understanding that starvation and restriction are outdated approaches. You now have a complete metabolic reset system that uses powerful but simple lifestyle strategies rooted in science. As we conclude, remember this: you don't need to fight your metabolism. You just need to understand it. Your biology instead of against it, fat loss becomes easier. Hunger becomes manageable. Cravings disappear, and your energy returns in a way you haven't felt in years. This is your new metabolic blueprint, and it's